Welcome back to the Honest Art Podcast. You guys, this is actually season 5. It's a fresh new start. I know it's the beginning of February, but still, it's the beginning of a new year, beginning of 2025. And I can't think of a better topic to jump off this new season with than what we're going to talk about today, because I get a lot of questions. I get a lot of DMs. I get a lot of emails, and I love it. I love hearing from you. And I think probably one of the biggest questions that I get from everyone is this: how can we be more free in our art? So I'm going to talk about how we can do it, but I'm also going to talk about why it's so freaking important. And I think this might surprise a lot of you. But the reason it's so important is because when we can nail this freedom in our art, it's going to permeate every area of our lives. So, I talk about color course for rebels, or art biz for rebels, or I also have the Rebel Artist Society, which is our community. The common theme here is rebel, and the reason is because when we start becoming free and just letting our freak flag fly, we start listening to our intuition and everything. When we get more free in our art, we become more free within ourselves and maybe ever so slightly rebellious. So if you're ready for this episode on how to be more free in our art, let's get messy. All right, so let's talk about what does it mean to be more free in our art? Because it really does look different to different people. For me, feeling more free kind of could be like loosening up. How can I make my art not feel so tight? So that could be it. It could be loosening up. Another one could be, and this is when I get a lot, like how can we learn to trust ourselves and our art? That could be another way of feeling more free in our art. And for somebody else, feeling more free in their art could just be, stopping with all of the, kind of I don't want to say self-loathing, but, all of that self-talk that is so negative, where we're comparing ourselves and our art to other people's. And all of this can be a form of wanting and desiring to feel more free and really kind of more embodied in our art. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, it's going to matter a lot, obviously, to the art, but I think we need to understand just the gravity of this. Because when we are more free in our art, what that means is we are really developing, nurturing, and really digging into our own voice as an artist. And just as a reminder, the 4 elements that make fine art are understanding the 4 things. And if you think of it like a table, right? All 4 table legs have to be solid in order for that table to be solid. One of them is understanding values in art, right? What are the color values? So understanding that, it's, our brain, our retina sees color values first. So if we don't have a really good grip on values, then that table leg is going to not be sturdy. The other one is composition, which I can't wait to talk about more about this composition in next week's podcast. So stay tuned, you guys. The third one is color cohesiveness, of course. And so if you've taken any of my workshops or any of my color course for rebels, you'll know that the mother color is everything for cohesiveness. But here's the thing, we're talking about freedom. The 4th table leg is your voice. It is the artist's voice. Now, again, why does this matter? Well, one of the things that is so important is I know a lot of you are wanting to maybe get into a gallery or you're wanting to work with an art consultant, or maybe you're wanting to get into exhibitions. And I was just on a doom scroll on Instagram, and I came across this gallery owner. Actually, what it was there was an artist that I loved. I love her work. Again, she's got a lot of freedom. She's got a very distinct voice. And she was saying that, hey, look, my art is now in this gallery. So that led me down the rabbit hole, went to that gallery. And this gallery owner, he was great because he was showing different pieces of art that he has in his gallery. But here's the thing that he said that is so important. So he said that he chooses art by one, going through social media. So that's a whole nother topic of if you think that you don't need to be on social media as an artist, don't shoot the messenger. So number one, he finds artists through social media. But here's the big thing. He said, I'm always looking for art that is a little different. So how do you think we create art that is a little different? Well, we create art that is a little different when we feel like we can trust ourselves, when we can trust our voice, and we can be free as fuck to do whatever we want. So we are the difference. It's our voice that's the difference. So if you feel like you don't have enough freedom and you don't have enough voice in your art, then, it might feel like the logical thing to do would be to, okay, well, and I'm going to show you how to use some tools and some different things to be more free. Okay, we're going to do that for sure. But what I want you to also consider is, where are you maybe not looking at yourself to see where you are maybe quieting your voice in just your life? Because, art is life. Everything is a reflection. So if we can't feel like we can be free, even if it's just to trust a brushstroke, then look at ourselves. Where is it that we feel like we can't be free within ourselves? So do you see what I mean? Like this topic is going to permeate everything. That is so, so exciting, because the more free we are, the more free we are. Okay, so where do we start? So I'm going to suggest that we start by taking risks, right? We're going to start by taking risks in our art. And then that's going to happen is they're going to maybe take a few more risks in our lives. But let's just start with the art. Let's just start with the little things. And it reminds me of somebody was interviewing Taylor Swift, and regardless of how you feel about her music, somebody was saying she was actually accepting an award at an award show, and she was talking about how we as the audience, we see her going up there and we see her receiving the awards for all of this incredible work that she's done. It's like the work that actually worked out. But she was saying what we don't see are all of the risks that she took that didn't work out. All of the songs that she wrote, or the bars, or the music, all of those things that she tried but didn't work. And so she was saying she was trying to encourage all of us as artists to continue to just take risks. So that's the thing that we have to do. Then let's get into the how. How are we going to do this? How are we going to take more risks so that we can have more freedom? Well, the first thing that I would suggest is to stop with the self-editing. Self-editing is like throwing water on like a ton of passion. It just kills the vibe. So what does self-editing look like? It could look like, wanting to write something on a canvas and being worried that somebody is going to see it. And if you've ever noticed this, like I do this in my journal. I used to write a bunch of stuff in my journal, and then I would cover it up with paint because I was so afraid that somebody might see what I'm writing. I still recommend that because I think it's a really, really good practice. But self-editing on our canvas starts with going, oh, I better not say that because my child might see it, my husband might see it, my mother might see that I wrote the word fuck, whatever that might be. And here's the thing, self-editing can also look like, reaching for a pastel because you're thinking, you look over at it, you're like, ooh, I love that color. That could be really, really cool. So you look at the pastel and you reach for it and you're like, oh no, because I'm not sure what that would look like. Y'all go for it. Just do it. You know what it is about a pastel, especially just like I can't think of the word, not the oil pastel, the other kind of pastel. Do you know you can just wipe that shit right off? It's just like chalk. You can wipe it off. And if it leaves a little residue, you can just spray it with water, especially on acrylic paint, and wipe it right off. So it's like there's so many different ways that we can self-edit. Another way that we self-edit is we have an artist that we admire their work. And so we think, ooh, I don't trust myself enough. So I'll look at that artist's work and see what they're doing and incorporate that into my work. See, even that alone is a form of self-editing. Anytime we don't trust ourselves enough to make the next right mark, the next right move, anytime we don't feel free enough in our art to trust ourselves, we are self-editing. Another way that we self-edit is by second-guessing our content of what we want to paint. That is definitely self-editing. Here's an example. So I know an artist who really loves taking pictures of the sky, but not just the sky, but the telephone wires and how the dark lines of the telephone poles and the telephone wires, she's really drawn to the contrast between the sky and those telephone wires. The problem is that she doesn't really paint that because she thinks, well, nobody would really get that. Who wants a painting of some telephone wires, right? That's a form of self-editing. Then there's another artist I know who is wildly successful, and I wish I could remember her name. My apologies. You guys, when I say this, I think you're going to know who she is, but she is an artist who paints machinery. Like, imagine, I know for me, if I saw a really cool piece of machinery, I would not paint it. I would not think, oh, I should paint that. Now, a truck, yes. An animal, yes. A cow, yes. So it all just depends. But imagine if she was like, oh, it's just machinery. I'm not gonna paint that. But because of the way she paints it, so she's got all of those other three elements. But man, she puts her voice into this, and she paints machinery. Imagine, that's freedom. That's like freedom to paint whatever the hell you want, right? So don't self-edit out what you think somebody may not want. And this leads me to the next form of self-editing, and that is only painting things that you feel like have marketability. So I get emails and I get DMs from people saying, I love painting abstract art. It's my very favorite form, but I live in X town and nobody gets it. No, this is a direct quote. Nobody buys abstract art. That alone is a form of self-editing. Remember, you are being called, or these artists, or me too, by the way, we're called to paint this abstract expressionism most days, right? For me. Now, imagine if we're like, yeah, nobody's buying that. Well, that's not true. That spins off into the business side of it and the marketability side and owning our voice from a marketing standpoint. That's something else I can help with. But if we self-edit out of painting what we want to paint because we think nobody's buying that, first of all, it's not true. And second of all, like we are editing out from a place of marketability, and we can't do that. We have to create from a place of what is calling us, what is stirring us, what is needing to be birthed through us. And we cannot let our ego self-edit out whatever that birth, whatever that creation is that wants to come through. The Honest Art Podcast is now on Patreon. And if you're like me, I didn't know what that was, but this is the good news. It's a private community platform so you can get even more from the Honest Art Podcast. So exciting. So as little as $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and for a little bit more, just a few more bucks, you get things like behind the scenes shenanigans that I'm up to. You get connection within the community of Patreon. We get to do Q&As. It's just a little bit more intimate, and you get discounts. You get early access to workshops, all kind of things. So consider joining my Patreon community, and you can do that at the link in the show notes. All right, now let's keep talking about how to be more free. Okay, you ready? So I'm going to say this, and I know you're going to say, oh, easy for you to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. At some point, you've got to ignore the judgment of others. All right, so when we show up and we have an inspiration, we have an idea, we have something we want to write, we have something we want to say, and we edit out because we are worried about the judgment of others, we are basically saying, I care more about someone else than I care about myself. Now, this comes down to work on worthiness and believing that what we need and what we desire is as important as anyone else. But if we start like creating from a place of judgment, or rather not creating from a place of judgment, our freedom goes right out the window. So let me give you a couple of examples of some art and some artists that I think are great examples of freedom. Okay, so the first one is, and again, I wish I had the names, but there is an artist that I follow on Instagram, and she wants to empower women and to take away the stigma of how our lady bits look, right? Because porn has created this impossible image of what women are supposed to look like. So like this is really something very empowering and very impactful for her. So she has people submit photos of their lady bits, and she paints them, and with their consent, she posts them online. And what is so beautiful about it is that through her work, she is helping to validate just like what it's like to be a woman and what it's like to really embody ourselves and to appreciate all of the parts of ourselves and to take away the shame of our sexuality. Now, imagine if she said, oh, nobody wants to see that. That's not going to sell. I better not because my son, daughter, mother, sister, aunt, brother might see this. No, she trusts herself enough, and she is so attached to why she's doing it that it's liberating not only for her, but it's liberating for the rest of us. Another, I don't know why this is on these are on like body parts, but I walked into my printer's building one day, and I saw this artist bringing in all these paintings, and the paintings were of various stages of, how should I say this, awakeness or sleepiness of a penis. And when I saw these paintings, they were amazing. Okay. Not because they were penises, but I thought they were amazing because I was like, holy shit, look at her. She's just owning what it is that she finds interesting, and she's painting it. And by the way, she sells the crap out of these pieces. But just like to paint, no pun intended, a finer picture of this, it's like an on grid. So one painting might like have 12 different penises in various stages of alertness or not. And it's just amazing. So talk about freedom, right? She's doing her thing, and it's a lot easier to be free, let's be honest, when it's selling, right? Because it is a validation, like, oh, people are interested in this. So I give you that for sure. But imagine if before it even happened, she's like, I'm not even going to paint it, right? But she didn't. She feels free enough to do that. So the thing is that we've got to own our voice. We've got to own what we find interesting, right? I might not be, painting vulvas, but gosh, I love insects, I think insects would be really, really cool to paint. And I keep saying I'm going to do a series on insects, and I never have, but I'm definitely going to do that. All right. So one more thing that we can do to have more freedom in our art is to play. I cannot emphasize enough how much play will impact your art, how much play will help you to feel more free in your art. And there are many different ways that we can go about feeling more playful in our work or in our art or when we show up. One is, I've talked about this before. One is music. Like music can help us feel more playful. Weirdly, I know this probably seems counterintuitive, but meditation can help us feel more playful in our art. And the reason is that it can ground you in the moment. So let's say you get a tax notice in the mail, or let's say, other things are going on in your family, or like so many distractions from the world. Well, it's really hard to show up to the canvas and feel playful when you've got all of these other distractions coming in. So the way meditation helps us feel more playful, and y'all, this, I'm talking like 5 minutes. Okay. I'm not talking about you've got to, Dalai Lama this. You don't have to sit there for hours and meditate to get this. But if you would just spend like 5 minutes in meditation prior to painting, it helps to ground us in that moment. And from there, we can lose some of the distractions, and then we can feel more playful in our art. Another thing that I've seen artists do that I think is so fun is to have some sort of like ritual to feel more playful. I know one artist likes like a particular pair of socks, these like really fun, colorful socks, and it's part of her ritual to wear these socks. I think that's actually, you do you, right? Another way you can feel more playful in your art is like, screw like the colors that you think designers are going to want, or screw the colors that are like the color of, the new colors of 2025. Do whatever you want. Use the colors you want. You might feel like, oh, I can never use fluorescent, right? Well, would that feel really playful? Would that feel really fun and silly to use fluorescent colors? Do that, right? That's a way to be more playful. And then, of course, another way to be playful that I always love is changing up your tools or doing something to your tools that make it feel more fun and playful. A lot of people talk about getting things out of the kitchen, using spatulas, using forks, using, different things. I know some people like to use, drills or what is it called? A Dremel? I think it's called a Dremel, like different sort of things you get from the hardware store, changing up tools like that. And then, of course, I think It's so cool to have a really long paintbrush because then you can't have as much control, and that's just fun. That's just really, really playful. You can get a yardstick or a big stick and duct tape or tie the paintbrush to the end of it and use it like that instead of having so much control over it. And it just feels much more playful to do that. And then lastly, in terms of playing, not lastly, there's a million different ways we can play in our art. I think that would be like a fun little project. It's like, how many different ways can I play in my art? But one thing that I know that's been fun, really, really fun for me, is to collaborate with other artists, right, on different things. And when I say collaborate, you could collaborate with maybe another artist who paints, or you could collaborate with an artist who maybe does textile, or maybe one that does jewelry, and you come up with some sort of fun collaboration together. I just think that that has been really fun for me, is working with other artists, because what we do is pretty solitary, which I'm okay with, but I forget sometimes how much fun it can be to work with other artists. All right. Now, this episode wouldn't be complete talking about freedom if we didn't talk about, the thing that I see so many artists do. And I just want to grab you, if you're an artist who are doing this, and I just want to give you a big hug. And I just want to whisper in your ear, trust yourself, believe in yourself. Because when we don't, what we do is we emulate other artists' work. And I'm going to tell you, we're about to start Studio Elite. And so I've been going through tons and tons of applications with artists who are applying, and they attach their art. And I don't choose the artists from Studio Elite just based on art, by the way. I've worked with a lot of artists with Studio Elite who've never sold a painting or anything. But what I see so much, because I do look at so much art, is you can tell when an artist is really trying to emulate another artist's work. And I get it. I did it too. I did it when I first started painting, because we want to paint so badly, right? We want to show up. We feel the benefits of painting. We feel the benefits of showing up, but we don't really know what to do. So we emulate other artists' work. But I can tell you there's no soul. There's no soul in the work that is an emulation of someone else's work. Remember the four legs of that table that we all need to make fine art. One of them is the voice of the artist. So you've got to trust your voice as an artist. When we do start trusting our own voice, it can't help but not only permeate the art that you're making, but it also permeates our lives, right? You can't do one without the other. So this is going to require vulnerability on our part. It's going to require a lot of courage. But as I said before, it's going to be easier if you start in little bits. You don't have to do it all at once. But the first thing we have to do is we have to recognize that maybe we're not painting or creating with as much freedom as we thought. Here's the great news. The more freedom you have in your art, the more freedom you're going to have in your life. And you're just going to sit up a little straighter. Your shoulders are going to go back a little bit. And when you see that people are going to start relating to, collecting, enjoying, responding to your art, when you see that because of this one thing you did, which is just being more free, when you start seeing the results of that, it's going to give you even more courage to keep going. So thank you so much for listening. And, I just hope that this podcast really encourages you, especially as we are starting off the new year, to own your voice and to own and trust that what needs to come through you is just exactly what the world needs. Okay, until next time, take good care of yourselves and each other. Peace out. Whether you are a new painter or a seasoned one, there's always something that we can do to elevate our art to fine art status. That's why I created the color course for Rebels, to give you the tools to do just that without the hefty price tag of art school. I am a grateful 7-figure artist, and this course is everything that I use in my art practice to sell paintings globally, to get into art galleries, to get into exhibitions, and everything like that. So the color course for Rebels is going to teach you all about values. It's going to teach you about composition. It's going to give you tips for you to find your own style. It's going to help with color saturation. It's going to give you my trademark color mixing method. And within the course, I also paint an entire painting, start to finish, including the fugly stage. And the price for the course starts at only $67. So if you'd like to learn more about it and elevate your art, go to the link in the show notes to learn more about the color course for Rebels.